look at everybody. They're really fun. So that's unfortunate.
Well, we have a special edition of the Great Northern Sex Cast today. Colleen Bertino, how are you?
Hey, it feels like we were just here.
I know. Right. We were.
We're going to release this in a couple of days, but, we're doing this a little bit early. So it's fun because we have a really amazing person with us again.
Dr. Markie is back. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I am great. How are you?
Doing really well. And this is a special edition today where the format's going to be a little different because you are such a wealth of material. Cool. And I mean that in a good way.
Thank you.
But you are here to talk about something that intrigued the heck out of us on your inaugural visit to the Sex Cast. Tell us what you're here to let everybody know about.
Well, we've started holding our Sex Speak sessions again. And so we'll be having one here in the cities. And we also are starting to do them internationally.
Really?
Yep. So that is probably the biggest news that I wanted to share with you all and your listeners.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's just back up for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of knowing who Dr. Markie is. Explain what you do and then, of course, what Sex Speaks is.
Okay. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm a certified sex educator through ASECT. I also am the program coordinator for the University of Wisconsin Stout Graduate Certificate in Sex Therapy, and then I teach out of the Marriage and Family Therapy program and the Human Development and Family Studies program there as well. I do clinical consultation, and I conduct workshops and trainings on various topics ranging from digisexualities, which is like robot sex, to sex speak sessions, to tantric workshops, all over the place.
Wow.
When do you sleep and eat?
In the middle of all that. Wet and messy play. No, just
That's funny. Well, so the Sex Speaks sessions, tell everybody what those are, because those are just really cool.
Yeah. So I was inspired by the work of Francisco Ramirez, who I've had a chance to co-author some work with before around sex positive education. And he's based out of New York City, and he is a public health educator. And kind of a celebrity through MTV. And he started hosting basically free advice sessions where people could just show up in a park in New York and ask any question that they might have. And it was confidential and just out in the open. And so in talking with him a little over a year ago now, I decided, you know what, we need something similar to that, but a bit different because the needs of the Midwest are different than New York. New York has a more, in some ways, blunt and open way of talking about sex than we do here. And oftentimes here, people are actually pretty sexually silent. So I think in some ways it's reaching people in a different way than it would in a bigger city like New York. So what we started doing was called it Sex Speak Sessions, and we started them about 6 months ago. And we've held some in the cities, some in the little town of Menominee where the University of Wisconsin Stout is, and then some on the campus of UW Stout. And it's just, we set up a sign that says Sex Speak Sessions, and please stop in and ask any question you might have about relationships or sex or gender. It's free. It's confidential. You can talk as little or as much as you want. And really the goal is to make sex education open and easily accessible to everybody instead of just being an ivory tower or a classroom or a therapy session. So it's myself that's always at the session, and usually my teaching assistants who are undergrads who just hang out and talk with the person until I'm free, because there's no sign-up sheet, there's no capital on the amount of time I can spend with someone, so it can go for quite some time. It can be individual. I had a couple actually show up on Valentine's Day. That's the last one we held. That was interesting.
Aww.
Yeah, that was part of their date.
Yeah.
They decided to come.
That's really cool.
As part of their date. And the couple was fascinating because it was someone who identified as a gay male and someone who identified as a lesbian female. And actually, they just have an agreement with each other to spend every Valentine's Day together when they're not partnered. So this was part of their date. They decided to come and talk about their lives and ask questions, and it was really amazing. So I've had other couples show up before, but usually it's individuals. And we just set up a sign. I'm there usually for 3 or 4 hours. We've had anywhere from just a few people that show up, but it lasts for like an hour talking to each one, to like 10 people showing up in a 3-hour block. So it just depends. And this time we did something a little different. When we had any downtime, we also went online to our Sex Speak Session Facebook page and did Facebook Live and took questions that way as well.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So the goal is really to make it accessible to everybody. I just think we don't have comprehensive sex positive education in high schools and elementary schools and junior highs most of the time. Most people can't afford to take a college course. Most people can't afford therapy. So why wouldn't we want to have a more educated society about sex? So that's really the goal. And it's been amazing and wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sort of imagining sort of like when I was roller skating, there's the snowball. It takes a few people to get started. And then once someone else is talking to you, does it make it more comfortable for other people to wander up? That first person that has to be brave.
You're right on spot. You're totally picturing the gigantic snow person appropriately. That's exactly what happens. So we usually have like a table set up in front of the Sex Speak. It's just 2 chairs usually and then a sign. And then a table that has like condoms, information about what we're doing. That's where my TAs usually are at, just manning that station. And then it usually has candy because people like candy. Makes them happy, right? They smile. And like little packets of lube. And then typically on hand, I usually have like some explanatory devices. So I'll have like a vulva puppet. I'll have like, a dildo or something of that nature, so that if I have to show people like, here's how you use an inside condom or an outside condom, because people have those questions, then I can do that. And yeah, usually once they see that other people are up there talking and it's okay, and they can't really be heard because it's enough of a distance, but yet it's public, then they decide, okay, yeah, I guess I do have questions.
I'm kind of fascinated with the whole idea of Midwesterners just kind of wandering up, because I would think that they might be shy.
They are shy. They're super shy. And so the other option we offer, and this is what's different than what my colleague in New York does, the other option is we decided to do what are called group Sex Speak sessions. So which could be perceived in a different way now that I'm thinking about it.
You say it that way.
Exactly. Now that I said it that way. Yeah. But what we do is we go to a location, and we've offered them out of like restaurants, where they have more of a private space, and like coffee shops. And we still set up a sign, and the restaurants and coffee shops have advertised with us. And it's a group one, which means that it's topical. So there's different tables set up, and they're by topic. And then there's questions that we've drafted in advance. And so people can they can choose a topical table, and they can bring other people with them. So it can be a whole group of people. We've had people bring their parents. We've had people bring their partners. So you can imagine parents.
No, okay. Give us some snapshots of that.
I work with my parents.
I know.
And I can't imagine. I don't want to know.
Right. Well, what it is.
So I'm like, I would be curious about that dynamic, because if you've never,
it's amazing. Yeah. So what'll happen is some younger people, either in college or maybe they're friends of people who are going to the university and they heard about this, they've showed up at the group sessions, and the group sessions are concentrated. So like one topic might be about safer sex. Another topic might be about, gender. Another topic is a mystery table. And at that one, anybody who sits at that table can just write questions, and then you go around answering them. And so people have just showed up with their parents and been like, hey, my parents wanted to come and hear about sex too, and they had questions. So we don't want to be at the same table. Usually they don't sit at the same table as their parents. In fact, typically we break up groups so that they're spread across, so that they can ask questions differently than they would if like their partner was there, or one of their family members was there. And then at each table, I'm usually rotating tables, but there's usually an alumnus of the sex therapy program. So we have somebody who's a trained professional. And then there's also on top of that, one of the undergraduate TAs. So there's usually at least 2 providers at each table. And then there's typically anywhere between like 2 and 5 guests at each table. And there's about 3 or 4 tables set up. So, and again, it's an open, which means people can come and go. They can get up and leave a table and go to a different table when they feel like they've had enough questions answered, or they've answered enough questions for themselves, or they just get bored, or they can come and go. I mean, and it lasts for a couple hours. So that was part of why we decided that, though, because you're right. You're in the Midwest, people don't feel like they can just come and ask about sex. But it's kind of like if you go to one of those pure romance parties. If you bring a friend, it doesn't quite feel so scary. So that was the point of having like the group dynamic.
Yeah, we've done that. We've done we do home parties. They're not the biggest thing anymore because I think people are very comfortable coming into our stores and stuff like that. And they're available because I don't want to say no if someone asks.
Right.
And the best part is people will say like, "Well, we had one of the parties and Liz does the parties for us." She's like, "No," but because they confuse us, they assume it's us. So, it's fine.
Yeah.
And you just need to be like walk through the door together and then split up. And I can see that because that's why, like at a home party, no matter what it is, you don't want the buying is done separately, whereas the chit chat is done
exactly
is done more publicly.
Exactly.
Well, you said you've been doing this for like over 6 months. Have you seen any trends? I mean, in who's showing up or the questions that are asked? I mean, or is it just mind-boggling in the vastness?
It's pretty much across the board. I will say that probably one of the most common topics that comes up is different forms of consensual non-monogamy. So I have a lot of people that ask questions about polyamory, people who ask questions about polygamy, people who don't understand the differences and similarities between those kinds of practices and groups and identities. But I would say that's a common topic. The other one that's common, and this makes perfect sense because in therapy, it's the number one problem. People just show up and have questions about communication. Like, I don't know how to talk to my partner about this. We struggle with this. I don't know how to talk to my parents. I don't know how to talk to my kid. So I would say that those are probably the two most common dialogues, but it really ranges. This last one, another participant, and this was really fascinating too, was struggling with their sexual orientation identity in the sense of like, I used to identify as asexual, then I had sex, and now I don't know if I still should identify that way. What does this mean? Does that mean that my identity changed, or now am I demisexual? So they were really struggling with like how to make sense of their own sexual identity in relation to their activities and their partner. And so that question had never come up, and we've held like seven of these. And there's been about 80 to 90 people that have attended them over the time. So, and last time I would say we could probably add on another 10 to 15. So you're now looking at over 100 people, and that never emerged. Sometimes I get STI questions. That comes up. This last time it did as well. One of the concerns was, where can I get tested and have it be, either cheap or free, and not have to go through insurance because
you don't want it on your My Chart.
Exactly. And some of these people too, they're still on like their parents' insurance, and so they don't want their parents to see that they're getting tested. So that emerged. I mean, and
well, are the school clinics or are they? I mean, they tie it in. I mean, if it's on insurance, it's on insurance.
Yeah, exactly. So the school clinic offers STI testing. It's still pretty expensive, and actually, the cost has gone up in Wisconsin over the last couple of years because of our governor's changes to the budget. And so one of the hits was actually student health insurance and the costs of student health. And so there's been a diminishment in the coverage, and then, of course, an increase in the fees. So that wasn't really a viable option for this particular person. And so then the struggle is, their fear was, of course, what if Planned Parenthood closes? What if I can't go there? I'm worried about that. So it definitely, that's another concern that people have, is safer sex practices comes up. And that was a large chunk of the time at the last Sex Speak session, for sure.
Okay, I got to back you up because you covered a boatload of ground right there.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to the guy rather, that was asexual and then had sex or whatever. I guess the question is, because at the end of the day, a person can be whatever they want to be. So was that purely something, a psychological struggle that person was dealing with?
Yeah, it totally was. It's completely
How did you even
that struggle.
unpack that?
Yeah. Well, we really started